Three things are happening to Social Security checks right now. Not in the future, not eventually, but right now. The first one can strip away 15% of your payment before it ever lands in your account. The second one is even more alarming. It allows the government to withhold up to half of your total monthly benefit, even when the error was never on your end. And the third one silently eliminates food support for people in their 60s who spent years thinking their age kept them safe. Here is what makes all three so dangerous. Every single one was designed to happen without warning. No phone call, no clearly written notice mailed to your door. You are expected to discover it the month your payment arrives, smaller than it should be. And by that point, the money has already been taken. Now stay with me because there is one more thing. For one of these three situations, approximately 8 out of every 10 people who are affected already qualify to stop it entirely. They qualify right now, and almost none of them ever submit the necessary paperwork because no one told them that paperwork even existed. Before this video is over, I will tell you exactly which one and the precise words to use. My name is Kevin. I study the rules so that you do not have to. If you are visiting this channel for the first time, it exists for a single purpose. We dig into the fine print that determines what happens to your money, so you learn about it before the system makes the decision for you. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, because at least one of these three situations is going to affect someone you care about. Let me start with the first one, because most people watching this are tempted to skip past it, and that is precisely how it catches them off guard. The federal government can once again pull money directly from your Social Security payment to collect on a defaulted student loan. Verified source, the US Department of the Treasury. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. Kevin, I am 70 years old. I do not have a student loan. And you might be correct, but listen carefully, because this situation catches people in two completely different ways. First, collections were paused for years. During the pandemic period, the government halted collection on defaulted federal student loans long enough that many people assumed the debt had simply disappeared. It did not. It sat there the entire time, and the system that collects it has now been switched back on. Second, and this is the part that really hurts, it is not only people who borrowed money for themselves. It is parents and grandparents who co-signed or who took out what is known as a Parent Plus loan to help a child or grandchild attend school. That loan carries your name, and if it slipped into default, the government considers it your debt, which means your Social Security benefit is now on the table. Here is exactly how the process works. It runs through something called the Treasury Offset Program. When a federal student loan is in default, the Treasury can collect up to 15% of your monthly benefit. Verified source, the US Department of the Treasury at fiscal.treasury.gov. There is one protection built in. They are required to leave you with at least $750 per month. But consider what that actually means for a real household. If your check is $1,200, then 15% is $180 gone every single month before you ever touch it. On a fixed income, $180 is the electric bill. It is the grocery run. It is the copay at your local pharmacy. Let me tell you about Eunice. Eunice is 68 years old. She lives in Macon, Georgia. She retired from a hospital laundry department after 29 years of service. Years ago, her grandson wanted to attend college. Nobody in the family had ever gone before, so Eunice signed her name on the paperwork. He struggled, eventually left school, the loan fell behind and life kept moving. She had not thought about it in over a decade. Then one month her payment arrived nearly $200 short. No explanation, no phone call, no letter explaining why. She had done nothing wrong that month. Nothing in her circumstances had changed. The only thing that changed was that a switch was flipped somewhere in an office in Washington. That is how quietly this unfolds. And this is not affecting just a small number of people. Estimates suggest approximately 450,000 Social Security recipients are exposed to this as collections resume. Verified source, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Many of them are living on that check and nothing else. So here is what you need to do, and please hear this clearly, because this is the part that almost nobody acts on. Do not wait for a short check to appear. If there is any federal student debt carrying your name, including a Parent Plus loan taken out for a child or grandchild, you have real options available to you. The first is financial hardship. You can apply through the Department of Education to stop the garnishment on the basis that removing that money would leave you unable to cover your essential living expenses. The second option is getting the loan out of default entirely, either through what is called loan rehabilitation, where you agree to make a series of small manageable payments, or through consolidation. Once the loan exits default status, the garnishment stops and your Social Security is protected again. Verified source, the US Department of Education at studentaid.gov. The key point is this is not a situation you cannot resolve. But the door only opens if you act before or immediately when that check begins to shrink. Call the loan servicer. Ask about hardship relief and rehabilitation. And do it now, while your full payment is still coming in. Now I want to pause here for a moment, because Ununice is the exact reason I created what I am about to tell you about. Every month that her check came up short, the relief was already available to her. It was sitting inside a federal program she qualified for the entire time. Nobody handed her a checklist. Nobody said the word hardship out loud where she could hear it. The rules governing her own money were written in a language designed to make her stop asking questions. That is why I put together a plain English guide called The Quiet Rules. It is the draw version of everything I cover on this channel. Written large, written simply, with the exact forms, the exact deadlines, and the exact sentences to use when you are on the phone, so that the person sitting at the kitchen table holding a letter they cannot fully understand knows exactly what to do on day one. Not a year later, the paper remembers for you. That is the entire purpose of having it in writing. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is directly below this video, or scan the QR code visible on your screen right now. It is also in the pinned comment. And there is always a 7-day satisfaction guarantee. If it does not give you something you did not already have, send it back. If this is the first time anyone has told you that your Social Security can be touched because of a grandchild's loan, do me one favour, subscribe and turn on the bell, because this channel reads the fine print that nobody ever mails you. Now the second change. And if the first one made you uneasy, this one is going to make you sit up straight, because this one does not care whether you have any debt at all. The Social Security Administration can withhold up to half of your entire monthly check to recover what they refer to as an overpayment. Verified source, the Social Security Administration at ssa.gov. Let me explain what an overpayment actually is, because most people misunderstand it completely. An overpayment occurs when Social Security determines that at some point they paid you more than they were supposed to. Maybe your income shifted. Maybe a benefit was recalculated. Maybe a form was processed late. And here is the part that genuinely infuriates people. Very often it was not caused by anything you did. It was their own error, their own calculation, their own internal paperwork. And yet you are the one they come to collect from. For years this process was handled with some degree of consideration. When they recovered an overpayment, they typically took around 10% of your monthly check while you gradually paid it down. 10% is painful, but most people can manage around it. That approach is over. The agency shifted to a far more aggressive collection rate. They initially announced they would take 100% of your check, your entire payment, until the balance was cleared. After significant public backlash, they settled on 50%. Half. Verified source, the Social Security Administration at ssa.gov. Sit with that for just a moment. Half of your Social Security check withheld, potentially for months, to repay a mistake you may not have made. For someone whose entire livelihood depends on that payment, losing half is not an inconvenience. It is a genuine crisis. Let me tell you about Merul. Merul is 71 years old. He lives outside Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He spent 33 years driving a fuel truck. One afternoon he went out to collect the mail, and inside was a plain envelope from Social Security. The letter stated that he had been overpaid 3 years earlier, and that they intended to withhold half of his check going forward. He read it 3 times. He had never received a raise. He had never concealed any income. If a mistake had been made, it was theirs. And the letter was not a request. It was a notification. That feeling, that combination of confusion and genuine fear, is what close to 2 million families have been experiencing. Verified source, the Social Security Administration. The agency's own accounting estimated the total overpayments at roughly $23 billion. That means a lot of envelopes going out and a lot of checks about to be cut in half. Now here is what I need you to hear, because most people who receive that envelope assume there is absolutely nothing they can do about it. That assumption is the single most expensive mistake described in this entire video. You are not powerless when an overpayment notice arrives. There are 3 specific actions you can take, and they work. Action 1. The moment that notice arrives, understand that there is a window, generally around 90 days, before they actually begin withholding. Do not ignore that window. That window is your protection. Action 2. If you cannot absorb losing that much of your check, you can request that they collect a smaller amount. There is a specific form designed for exactly this purpose. It is the request for a change in your overpayment recovery rate. You tell them what you can genuinely afford, perhaps 10% rather than 50%, and you can bring your check back close to its full amount while you work through the situation. Action 3, and this is the most significant one. If you believe the overpayment was not your fault, or if you do not believe you were overpaid at all, you can appeal the decision and you can request a waiver. When you file that appeal within the appropriate time frame, it can pause the collection process while your case is being reviewed. And the waiver states plainly that the situation was not your fault and that repaying it would cause genuine financial hardship. Verified source, the Social Security Administration at ssa.gov. People do win these cases, but only the people who actually file. So if one of those notices ever appears in your mailbox, do not panic and do not set it aside. It is not a final decision. It is the opening of a process. And you have far more influence in that process than the letter is designed to make you feel. Here is what ultimately happened with Mayoral. He did not know he had a 90-day window. He did not know there was a form available to reduce the collection rate. He had never encountered the word waiver in this context. He found out from a neighbour 7 weeks into the situation. 7 weeks of a good, hard-working man lying awake at night, running through numbers he never needed to calculate. He recovered most of what was taken, but only because a neighbour happened to know what the letter deliberately left unsaid. Now the third change, and this is the quietest of the 3, which is precisely why it will catch the most people off guard. The rules surrounding food assistance have shifted in a way that draws in a significant group of older Americans who previously had protection. I am referring to SNAP, the program most people still refer to as food stamps. For years, the work requirements attached to the program applied only to younger adults. Older adults were exempt from those requirements. That protection has now been extended much further up the age scale. Adults who do not otherwise qualify for an exemption must now satisfy a work requirement all the way through age 65. Verified source, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act at congress.gov. In practical terms, people in their late 50s and early 60s who assumed they were well past these requirements must now document 80 hours of work, approved training, or qualifying volunteer activity each month to maintain the food assistance they depend on. 80 hours per month works out to roughly 20 hours every week. For someone who is 62, perhaps dealing with declining health, perhaps providing care for a spouse, perhaps already pushed out of the workforce, that is not a minor adjustment. Let me tell you about Ramona. Ramona is 63 years old. She lives in Bakersfield, California. She left her job 4 years ago to care for her husband as his dementia progressed. She is not retired in any comfortable or traditional sense of that word. She works continuously, just not for a paycheck. The food assistance is what stretches the limited income coming into their home. Under the previous rules, her age provided a shield. Under the new rules, unless she submits the correct exemption documentation, she is now expected to find 20 hours of work per week or risk losing the assistance entirely. The projections are significant. More than 1 million older adults in the 55 to 64 age range could lose food assistance as a result of this change. Verified source, the Congressional Budget Office. But here is what truly matters. The exemptions did not all disappear. Real protections still exist. And this is where understanding the rules makes all the difference. You may still qualify for an exemption if you are medically unable to work. You may still qualify if you are providing care for a dependent, such as a young grandchild you are raising or an incapacitated family member. If you receive disability benefits, that typically qualifies as an exemption on its own. And once you actually reach age 65, the full exemption returns. Verified source, the US Department of Agriculture at fns.usda.gov. So here is what you need to do. If you or someone in your family falls within that late 50s to mid-60s age window and relies on food assistance, do not wait for a letter telling you the benefits have stopped. Contact your state SNAP office directly. Ask them specifically which exemption applies to your circumstances and get the supporting documentation submitted on time. A letter from your doctor, proof that you serve as a caregiver, documentation of your disability benefits. The exemption only works if it is actually on file, and I want you to hold on to the next sentence more than anything else in this video. The people who lose their benefits are almost never the people who did not qualify to keep them. They are the people who qualified and simply never submitted the paperwork. Now here is the arithmetic I want you to sit with for a moment. One of these three can quietly cost you roughly $2,000 over the course of a year. Another can take half of every payment for months at a time. And in every single case, the thing standing between you and that money was not eligibility. It was one form that nobody ever placed in your hands. That is exactly what the Quiet Rules provides. The forms, the deadlines, the words to use. For every one of these situations, written in plain English, sitting in a drawer, something your family already knows about, before the letter shows up, not after. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment at the top of the page, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. 7-day guarantee, no questions asked. And if you would like me to take a look at your specific situation, send me an email at kevinexplainsofficial@gmail.com. I read every message. Now let me fulfill the promise I made at the very beginning. I told you that for one of these three situations, roughly 8 out of 10 people who are affected already qualify to stop it entirely. It is the first one, the student loan garnishment. According to the government's own Consumer Protection Agency, approximately 82% of Social Security recipients dealing with a defaulted federal student loan would actually qualify for hardship relief. Verified source, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. 82%. Read that figure one more time. 8 out of 10 people are already eligible to have that garnishment stopped. The relief is right there waiting. And almost nobody claims it for one single reason. Nobody told them they could ask for it. That is the complete story behind every rule covered in this video. Now let me bring all three together because I want you to leave with the full picture, not just 3 unsettling headlines. The garnishment takes up to 15%, and hardship relief stops it for 8 out of 10 people. The overpayment collection takes up to half your check, and a 90-day window, a rate adjustment form, and a waiver can pause it and even eliminate it entirely. And the food assistance rule now extends to age 65, but the exemptions remain available if you file them in time. 3 changes, 3 doors that are already unlocked from the inside. Now, your action checklist, 5 things to do this week. 1, if there is any federal student loan carrying your name, including one you co-signed for someone else, call the servicer and ask specifically about hardship relief and rehabilitation. 2, if an overpayment notice has ever arrived at your address, locate it and find the date. You may still be within the 90-day window. 3, if you cannot sustain the withholding amount, request a lower recovery rate and submit a waiver if the error was not yours to begin with. 4, if you or your spouse is between 55 and 65 and currently receives food assistance, call your state office this week and get your exemption documentation on file before anything changes. 5, share this video with one person you know who is over 60 and living on a fixed income. One of these 3 situations may be about to affect their check, and they have almost certainly not heard a single word about it. Let me leave you with the one idea that connects all 3 of these situations together. None of these rules were designed to be announced publicly. They were written to be applied quietly and automatically to people who would not realise that a single form stood between them and their own money. The people who get hurt are almost never the ones who had no options available to them. They are the people who simply did not know those options existed until the money was already gone. That is the entire design of the system. These rules depend on you not paying attention. So paying attention today is exactly how you protect yourself. I am Kevin. Thank you for watching. And do not forget to check out the Quiet Rules at kevinexplains.shop.